What is going on, everybody? Let's just jump straight into this. So we are looking at Bitcoin here, and we can see that Bitcoin has finally broken out to the upside after this roughly, we'll just say, close to 2 month range. This is a pretty significant breakout from a psychological standpoint, and it's really the first sign of hope that we've really seen since this breakdown. Now, I want to dissect this scenario we're in multiple ways. Let's talk about first just the pure technicals. Forget about everything else. We're just going to talk about the pure technicals, and I'm going to remove some of this stuff here so that you're not distracted. These are just alerts in case we were to go down there. So this is the 50-week moving average we're looking at. To me, this is probably the most useful moving average in terms of assessing bull market or bear market. Everybody has to have a line in the sand, and I do believe that this was a pretty good one, as when we have gotten above this, good things have happened, and when we have gotten below it, bad things have happened. It's not perfect, but you can see that once you get below it, it tends to stay below it for a while. And then, if you stay above it, it typically will stay above it for a while. Small sample size, to be fair, but we all need some sort of line in the sand. So I think a lot of guys will use this as a line in the sand. And we can see that this is at roughly 101K, which makes sense to me in terms of it going there, mainly because I think I'll be surprised if this doesn't break through 100K, because it is such a psychological dumb level. Like 100K doesn't really matter. Like it's just another number. It's no different than 99. It's no different than 101 or 103 or 100. It's just a number. So I'm not one of these people that are like, oh, I'm going to get long if it's above 100K. I think that's retarded, but I get it. I mean, that's how humans think. But it doesn't really matter. What matters to me is the reclaiming of these moving averages, because I think smarter people realize that those are more significant. Okay. And I do believe you will break through 100. I don't know if you hold it though, but I do think people will put stop losses there. And then if we were to break through it, people will jam into the trade. It sort of becomes reflexive. So I'm actually leaning that it may break actually even above that 50-week, closer to like 105. When I look at this from a technical standpoint, I do see a lot of confluence between basically that 50-week and then closer to like 105. And you can see that you have the 200-day moving average. So here's your 200-day moving average right here. And you can see that again, the 50-week is here, the 200 days here. I think we're going to eventually get somewhere in between that. Now, I will say, I do not expect for this necessarily to go much higher than that, but I want to be open-minded. Like, I don't really like the idea of being closed-minded here. Like, yep, it has to put in a right shoulder for this head and shoulder structure, which would effectively be like this here. I don't really like that, because it's to me, there's just that's a bad way to look at it. It's better just to assume that it can go up or down, and just sort of like not try to predict that sort of far in the future. And what I mean by that from a practice standpoint is, like, obviously I think you want to take profit, not financial advice. Like, if you're long from down here, you definitely are going to want to, in my opinion, take some sort of profit around here. Now, if you're like a longer term investor, maybe you don't do that. But as a trader, like, this is a no-brainer area. Again, 101, or we'll just say 100 to roughly 105. And I expect that will be a sticky level where it would probably, like, even in maybe the best case scenario, want to stay there for a while. Again, this is going to be a challenge for the price to get above that, at least in the short term, mainly because I think that you will find people who will want to sell above 100. I don't think they want to sell here, but I do think that as you get above 100, you will see some people that will sell. And this is all going to matter, it's all about context, like of what happens as we get further into Q1 and Q2, right? What is liquidity like? What is the stock market doing? What are the narratives? How close are we to people getting out before the midterms? Because we know the midterms is the issue, is the central most important problem for Bitcoin in 2026, is the midterms. Like if you took away the midterms, I feel like you'd have to be optimistic. Problem is, we know how this asset class and just assets generally, they don't like to get long in an unknown event like that, which could actually have pretty big implications for the industry. And I'm not going to really go into that piece, but we all know that people are going to be hedged and out of harm's way well before that, just like they did in 2024, going into the Trump or the presidential election, which is the markets were consolidating like 6 months before the election, right? Because people knew you just waited for that. And guess what? It worked out. If you just waited for that election result, you won. If you tried to predict it way too far in advance, you had to hold through a lot of volatility and a lot of uncertainty. And I don't think people are going to do that, barring SBR or some sort of sovereign wealth fund aping in, right? But overall, you kind of get the point. Like, this is still trending higher. Clearly, this is, unless we get a big turnaround tomorrow, I think this is going to continue higher. But I should say, again, the closer you get to 100, it's going to be harder, for this to grind higher. Minus a narrative, a story, something to really kick that reflexive feedback loop into place, which is not really happening right now. Let's talk about the microstructure. So here's the micro. I like what I see. If you've been looking at my X account, I'll tell you, this is the best we've really seen in a long time, order flow wise. And I'm going to show you kind of what I mean. If you've been watching my X account, I was saying when we had this big gap here, and this started actually well before here. I'm going to show you actually when this started. This started here on like the 9th. And notice how, so you had this big spot buyer, boom. And it just kept staying there versus perps. So perps were fading, not buying aggressively like these spot buyers. And it stayed like that for a long time. That was your signal. That was really your signal, because this is, believe it or not, this scenario, I could be wrong. I should probably back test this before I say this, but to my knowledge, this has not happened like in a long time. I think you got to go back like greater than 6 months before you see this sort of situation. Even when we had some of these pumps back in the summer to like 120, you didn't even get a scenario like that. It was like the ETFs, I guess, were scaling in passively, so limit order, like chasing, price was moving up like that. Whereas this was actually people hitting the tape. And when you see that, like a gap like that, you should be bullish, because what that means is that perps are not in, they're probably off sides, and they will chase as price goes up. Now, obviously, that has since, that's not going to last forever. And you can see that perps have finally sort of gotten the memo that, hey, like prices are going higher, but it's not frothy. Like, this is not a frothy market. Perps aren't way over their head. And you can look at open interest, like, it's going up, but not really, or not really that much. Like, if I kind of zoom in on this open interest, you'll see that, price is higher, but open interest is where it was when price was actually a lot lower. Right? So that tells me that, again, you really have, like, nobody's really piling in, at least to the standard of what we've seen in the past. That's good. Now, when you start to see open interest getting, quote unquote frothy, right? And so you start to see perps just getting way out of sync with spot. Eventually, and if you get over 100, I'm telling you that's going to happen fast. Then you're going to have to you should look at this differently. Okay, but for now, this is pretty good. Now, the one thing I say, I see that I do wish was different is the passive liquidity on the order books. But I can't really use this as, to me, this is not that powerful of a signal because we've seen this before where, the depth is clearly skewed to the offer side, but it just goes up anyway. Basically, these takers will eat through it. So this is important in that when you do have an imbalance like this, it's okay if they're spot buyers. Because what is that telling you? It's telling you there's more offers on the book than bids, within a 10% range, 5%, 2.5. You got to eat through it. Like, price is not magical how it moves. Takers eat through bids and offers, right? And if you're going to eat through these offers, you need people hitting the tape with market buys. And if that keeps happening, i.e. spot tape going up, the CVD, then that's fine. But if you see the spot tape really getting flat and going down into this, it's going to be a lot harder to go up. And we haven't really seen that yet. Like, I think this might illustrate this a little bit better. Let me see if I can move this over. Remember, you had this big gap here, which we loved. Oops. I say big gap. It's not really showing it to us in the way that's accurate. Yeah, this is probably not the best way to look at it. So let me get off of that. Okay, you get the point though. As long as we have spot buyers, and I guess I'll zoom back in here so you can kind of see. Or actually, you know what? This is the most important thing. This is the Binance tape. If you want to know the single most important data set, it's that. It's literally Binance takers. Are they dumping on the market, or are they aggressively adding? We've gone wherever that tape has gone. When you had this big downtrend, everyone knew it. Everyone was talking about it, on the feed, like, oh God, Binance is raping the market again, CZ, blah, 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 which is, it's kind of a meme, but maybe there is something to that, but you get the point. Like, as long as you have Binance buying, you should be optimistic that it will keep going higher. It seems to be really the limiting factor. So this is the Binance tape right here, and it's pretty much straight up. It hasn't really, in fact, it's from a CVD perspective, it's just making new highs. And yes, it is appropriate to look at it like that when you're zoomed in. I had someone comment on my post the other day that was like, you can't use CVD like over time. Well, you can for this period of time. This is a small piece of 5-minute candles. And this is like literally like a day right here, 2 days. Okay. You can use this as a signal and it looks good. I don't know what I think about altcoins. And I hadn't even thought about this, to be fair or be honest, but let's do it anyway. Let's just I'm going to just spitball here and give you my thoughts. I hadn't even looked at the alts that much. Let's start with light. So lighter. This is disappointing, and I'm going to be honest with you. I got hit pretty hard on this one because I had added down here on this retest and ate crap on it, and I'm a little surprised actually that it has performed like this. It's basically doing what we've seen with these other promising projects at launch. I mean, it's just people dumping nonstop, and I'm not really sure what to say about it other than you have to be careful, because if you remember, and I'm sure this is fresh on some of your minds, where is it at? XPL. This was a pretty bad one, right? A lot of people were getting raped on this one because they were like, oh, surely it's going to reverse. And it just kept going down only. Apples to oranges, I don't think it's quite the same, but to be fair, I mean, it looks very similar right now. It's down a lot. from this recent local high. I mean, it's down like 40%. I just don't think you want to get involved in this until it starts to show some constructive price action. In terms of some other things, I've been talking a lot about BNB. Eventually, I think this becomes a really solid trade, and I'm going to go into why. So here's his 200-day. This is like the only asset that's a crypto asset that's above his 200-day moving average. Like if I go down the list here, I'm just going to pick random stuff, okay? Just random stuff. None of them are even close to their 200-day moving average, including Bitcoin. Okay, including Bitcoin. And then, well, there is one exception to that, obviously, Zcash, right? But if I just go down the list, you'll see what I mean. Like everything is below its 200-day moving average. So BNB is special, but it's weird. It has like this sort of inverse relationship to Bitcoin in that when Bitcoin shows a lot of strength, it typically sort of backs off and slows down. And you can see that BNB versus Bitcoin is just like this flat line chart. But I want to throw this out there. Eventually, I think this is going to be a monster. BNB is special, man. Again, it's above his 200-day moving average. Look at this chart. It's like the only chart that looks like this. Again, other than Zcash, except I would say this looks better than Zcash. With Zcash, it almost looks like it's done, or at least for a while. Whereas with BNB, I'm like, that's pretty constructive. It's just a higher low on this really nice trend that has been in for a long time now, or about 2 years. So we will be talking more about this on the X account at some point. I do want to say it does look like it may consolidate versus Bitcoin for a while. But what is that really telling you? It's telling you that it has basically like a better risk-adjusted trade on a higher time frame, meaning in the bad times, so this is like, look, December, November, it actually performed about the same as Bitcoin, meaning its downside risk is quite good, whereas its upside is probably much higher than Bitcoin. So risk-adjusted, like Sharpe ratio, if you do a calculation on this over the last few months, it's a lot better than Bitcoin. You should keep an eye on this. That this, again, this is a higher time frame trade, or maybe medium, but eventually I think this is going to break out versus Bitcoin and may go up a lot. Now, you have to be careful trading this versus Bitcoin in that it could pull back a bit first. I could see this pulling back about 10% versus Bitcoin, but I just want to throw this out there again because I see something in this that I don't see in really anything else. It definitely has some special qualities to it. All right, guys, I think that's all I'm going to cover today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share with some friends, and we'll see you later.